everyone. Welcome to our video today. I'm Jorhena Thomas, and I'm here with one of our fantastic mentors, Kimmy Ma. Hi, Kimmy.
Hello, everyone.
So, Kimmy, I'm so happy to be talking with you today. So, everyone, Kimmy has a very interesting background. She is in biosecurity, and she's going to talk with us a little bit today about what that is and who can get in it and her path and all sorts of interesting stuff. So, Kimmy, I'm just going to jump right in. Can you tell us what is biosecurity?
That's actually a great question to start with. The definition can be as broad as some people want. Um, in the most original, narrowest definition, biosecurity is, protecting biological materials. So diseases, toxins, etc., from humans who might want to use it, for ill intent. But also, protecting humans from the ramifications of biotechnology or just new things that are biological that are coming down the pike that we don't necessarily understand how that's going to affect us. I tend to work in the broader realm a little bit as well, which is more health security. And health security is uh, looking at public health, infection prevention, things like that as a part of our nation, and other nations do this as well, our nation's national security priorities.
As it should be, right? I mean, COVID was a great
Yes.
example of why public health is a national security uh, imperative. Okay, so how did you get into this space, Kimmy? And did you start out in this space? Did you have to pivot to get into this type of work? Tell us about that.
So I I can't say it's been a straight path. I absolutely love what I do now, but for gosh, how many years? 11 years I was pre-med. For very personal reasons, I wanted to become a doctor. I probably still could have, but I went through the whole process. I did I took my MCAT. I did my primary and my secondary applications. I even did my interviews. I flew out, did my interviews. I came back to DC where I was doing my master's at the time, basically in biosecurity, and just had this epiphany. It was like, nope. And when I say nope, again, it's not because I said no to the medical field. My partner, he's studying to be a doctor. It's not the healthcare field itself. It's that I realized if my goal is to help people, there are other ways to do it. My undergrad was in molecular biology, though, and so I've always loved bio. I've loved science. Uh, but my master's taught me that there's not just the lab research side, there is this larger policy side where you change policies and you're changing generations, you're changing cultures. And so that's how I got into the field. My first job was working international biosecurity. Loved, loved, loved. It was really like kind of drinking from a fire hose because it was your first job out of my master's, really young, had no clue what I was doing, but I loved the work. I was working with State Department's cooperative threat reduction program. Super cool. I loved it. From there, the pandemic hit, as we all remember, and I decided that I wanted to do something to help at home. Again, pivoted into a job in public health preparedness in which I had no formal training, no idea what I was doing, but learned on my feet, had a fantastic boss, fantastic person who hired me, is still a mentor to me to this day. And that's when I realized, oh, maybe I actually want to do health security, which is a broader form of it. Um, and then from there, I am in my current job, which is really where I never saw myself going. I came back to the more traditional biosecurity space, kind of the preventing misuse end of things, and I currently am under Congress. So that is, I think, to some people, the highest form of working in policy. Um, a little, different from what I ever pictured myself doing, but it's been a wild ride, and I don't regret, any step of how I came to this current position.
So, Kimmy, did you also do this type of work at the state and local level as well?
No, so so say for instance, when I was with State Department, that was at the international level, right? Like we didn't even touch anything in the US basically.
Mhm.
And then when I was in public health, the way that I worked with them is uh I loved it. So the program that I was part of basically is like the preparedness programs at CDC and then ASPR, which are both within the Department of Health and Human Services, and both heavily involved in the pandemic response. And I got to work with the preparedness directors at every single state and territorial level, and also the four big cities. So, LA, Chicago, DC, New York City. And we got to hear what they needed. So it's not so much we like got involved in their affairs, but they would tell us, this is what we need. This is how the situation is, and just be a liaison between them and the federal government, our federal partners. But I got to see and hear their stories, and I got to see people who cared a lot. They cared so much about, their constituents. A lot of them came from those states, right? They grew up there and now they got to work for people there and they loved it, even though, the pandemic was crazy. And so I think that's my biggest state and local involvement. My current one again is more at the federal level. It's, what can Congress do? What can federal agencies do? Um, but I loved working at a, not federal level. I'll say that.
Yes, thanks for sharing that. And I think that your role as a liaison really shows how national security is at all levels. Even though you didn't work at the state and local level, you were working with state and local officials, city officials, as a liaison, and that information was flowing back and forth. And you also worked at the international level. So I think it's important for people to understand that, if you want to do national security, it doesn't always have to be at the federal level. There are different ways. Okay,
Yeah.
so Kimmy, I know we only have a few minutes left. I want to ask you two more questions. So the first is, who is this type of job for? Like, who can get in the space that you're working in? And then my last question, I'll just throw them at you now. You can answer them however you want. And then my last question is, like, what's unique about your work? Like, what's surprising that you think people wouldn't know?
I think those questions are tied because I'm going to picture here. I want anyone who is interested in serving their communities, interested in just serving humans, like their fellow humans, to look into this space because it's huge. And that's how I realized I was like, I don't have necessarily a national security background when you look at my education, right? I I was a scientist, right? But I love helping people and I love seeing communities grow and thrive. And I like learning on my feet. And if you're willing to learn, I guess that would be my one prerequisite, right? Is you're willing to learn, you're willing to go into a little bit of an unknown territory. As long as you're willing to do that, we welcome you. Come here, please.
Okay.
Right? Because the pandemic was filled with unknowns. We didn't know what the virus was doing, right? And it's being able to operate even within that space. Love, love, love. In terms of other unique things, I think it's the ability to see change yourself.
Mhm.
When I was in the international biosecurity space and I got to work with people from the Philippines, from Turkey. And some of my partners in the Philippines were the people on the ground making the changes. And when I had a workshop with them, and they still text me sometimes to this day, and they're like, Miss Kimmy, this happened. Can you believe it? I'm like, wow. And it seems casual, but it's a huge change. Little changes end up making giant impacts in the future, and being able to
Yes.
be a part of that and see that. Sometimes in other fields, you are one tiny part and you don't see the big impact at the end. I think for me, the joy has been seeing I have a little tiny impact. I see the tiny impact, and then I also get to see the big impact in the future. So, for I think a lot of us, we come out of undergrad and we're like, we want to save the world. Well, guess what? This is it. come here. Um, and genuinely, like our field is so rapidly changing, and also like so much need of people who think differently, who are willing to try new things, and I think pump a little fresh energy into the field. Um, we need the youngins, right? Like, and I say that like I'm, 100 years old, but like I just started, and I can tell that anyone who comes after me is going to have new ideas that I can't think of. And that's a big, big, I think, draw should be, I hope, right? For people who are coming out and want to make an impact. So I don't know. That's all I can really say, I think.
Well, thanks, Kimmy. This has been enlightening. Thank you so much for sharing with us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Sure. Bye.